Welcome, everybody, to the Forest Footprint for Cities webinar from Cities for Forests. I'm Scott Francisco, one of the co-founders of Cities for Forests and a director of the program, along with our colleagues at the World Resources Institute and my team here today, Mac Phillips and Michael Southwood. We're really pleased to have you joining us. This is a webinar. We cannot see your faces, unfortunately, but we trust that you're there listening and can hear us, and please use the the Q&A function if there's anything you need to tell us along the way. Mike will be monitoring that. So we're here today to talk about the Forest Footprint for Cities tool. And the Forest Footprint for Cities is one of Cities for Forests' first tool initiatives. And we'll be going into some technical details and also a how-to guide, but we thought we'd just spend a couple of minutes in talking about where this came from. So we'll go to the next slide. And, here we are today as it's becoming more apparent every day, leading up to the COP that I'll actually have the privilege to attend in a few days. We understand that the world is in a tough time with respect to climate change, and that ultimately urban consumption and urban living is a huge driver of the issues with respect to climate change, the emissions that are being caused, and the consumption that is coming from cities is responsible for the majority of the not only the emissions, but also the biodiversity loss that is coming from deforestation. And so we founded Cities for Forest with the cause of engaging cities in addressing this climate and biodiversity emergency. And we feel very strongly that cities need to take a kind of action that goes beyond simply looking at their own territorial emissions and impact, and extending that leadership and extending that influence out to the world. So Cities for Forests is a network that's been growing since it was founded in 2018, from the first 45 cities when it was founded now to over 100 cities. This is a snapshot of the map on citiesforforest.com. You can go and see and look at all of the cities that have joined this initiative in this collaboration. Next slide. I will say it's important that the cities are diverse geographically, and that's important because when it comes to deforestation, which is really the core of the topic we'll be talking about today, deforestation in the tropics is really one of the key drivers of climate change and the biodiversity loss that we're facing, and the cities that are situated in those regions are very key and strategic. However, that deforestation, as we'll see, is not being caused by the consumption of those cities alone by any means, but rather cities all over the world. So that diversity of cities in our membership is very important. This is just a little slide to show where deforestation is occurring in the world. And permanent deforestation or permanent loss of forests is really concentrated in the tropics, where we have issues in the northern forests with degradation. Mostly that is being renewed and replanted. There are issues there with that, but the permanent deforestation is occurring in tropical forests, which, by the way, are the most biodiverse forests and in many respects the most climate-rich forests. So this is part of the crisis that we're dealing with, is addressing tropical deforestation through the lens of cities worldwide. Next slide. Probably won't be a surprise to everyone here, but tropical deforestation is mostly driven by food and commodities that are consumed globally. And this is a bar graph. We won't get into all the details here. You can see, if you look along the bottom of the bars, some of the key commodities, beef being the largest by considerable margin, oil seeds, including palm oil, and soy being the second largest. Forestry, primarily that's plantation driven deforestation, where native forests are being replaced with monoculture plantations, and we have a variety of foods making up the remainder. So cities all over the world are part of this consumption, and the goal of this tool is to help cities understand this and actually take action. Next slide. To put that into context, this tropical deforestation that we're concerned with here, if tropical deforestation were a country, it would be approximately third. It's about tied with the European Union, but there's a range of estimates for the emissions from tropical deforestation. If you take the higher of those estimates, it's actually considerably bigger than the European Union's entire emissions. So that puts it into context of just how big of a problem this is, even only from the climate change perspective, let alone the implications of biodiversity loss and all of the social factors that come with deforestation. Next slide. To kind of zoom out a little bit, Cities for Forests as a network works at 3 scales. And what we've been talking about here on the far right of this slide are the faraway forests. So from a city's perspective, we call the forests faraway forests that are well outside of their boundaries. And in the case of the northern cities of the world, tropical forests are quite far away. For some of our tropical cities, those might be not so far. But we work at all scales. We work with cities addressing inner forest issues, and that includes street trees and local parks and natural areas inside of cities, critical for well-being and health in cities. Nearby forests, which are within a few hundred kilometers of a city, connected by culture and that access, often responsible for drinking water, etc. And again, these faraway forests, which supply the world with oxygen, biodiversity, medicines, timber products of all sorts, from the coffee you drink to many of the food products that we consume all over the world. Next slide. So there's a variety of tools and programs that Cities for Forest has been working on and developing since our founding in 2018. And again, putting this one in context, the forest footprint for cities and the action plan is key to addressing the relationship to these faraway forests. We have a variety of other tools. We would invite you to visit our website and see them. But this footprint tool is something that came from really our team trying to create accessibility to the issue of deforestation that cities are responsible for, and figuring out how to engage that into climate action planning, biodiversity action planning, and other activities that cities are starting to undertake as part of their leadership in the environment. Next slide. So just as another sampling before we dive deep into the forest footprint, the Partner Forest Program is something that our team has also been working on, and this is really jumping into the action plan thinking for a forest footprint, but we have been working with cities in making direct connections to forest landscapes and communities and producers of a variety of products in tropical forest landscapes, including conservation timber, coffee, chocolate, other products that can sort of charismatically show up in cities and begin to reverse that obscurity and negative relationship, but rather create positive and visible and vibrant relationships between producers of products that help conserve forests and cities where much of this consumption takes place. Next slide. Again, just another context aspect here, and that is that while inner forest for cities are very important in terms of well-being, shade, heat island impacts, and local water management, many other values, when it comes to carbon, these forests, we'll call these outer or faraway forests, store much more carbon. And that just puts shines another light on just why it's so important and how it is important that cities begin to address these forests that lie far outside of their boundaries. So this is just a graph that shows the carbon density per hectare of different types of forests. And you can see these tropical forests are much higher in terms of carbon density per hectare than other forest types. Next slide. I think this is the last slide in our intro, just to say that what we're talking about today is captured on a website, forestfootprint.org, which everyone is welcome to visit. This is where the dashboard lives, and the cities that have already begun participating and where we have actually done a footprint live. Many of the resources Mac will talk about are going to be found there. And so with that, you can go to the next slide, Mac. I'll just introduce Mac Phillips, who's the program manager for the Forest Footprint tool. Mac has been working on this tool for about 3 years and done a tremendous amount of research on the back end of this tool. He's going to share that with you today and then take you through how cities can take advantage of this new tool. So take it away, Mac.
Thanks, Scott. Can everyone hear me and see me well? Yeah. I think at least the three of you that, or the two of you that I can see. Okay, great. Yeah, thanks, Scott. I'll just leave the slide up for a second here, just to say, yeah, this website is a culmination of a lot of really hard work. I thank everyone that we've worked with thus far to really make this a reality. This today is really to celebrate the launch of this website. It's public. You can go to it now. Maybe wait till the end of this webinar just to tool around with it and explore it and contribute to it. But really, this is what we're here to talk to you about today, is really how to use this tool. So get right into it. We've got a lot to cover in a short amount of time. What is a forest footprint? So this is a tool that provides a method for understanding how city actions impact trees and forest outside their boundaries. The goal, as Scott said before, is to connect global estimates of tropical and subtropical deforestation linked to agricultural production to commodity-specific international trade and city consumption. The methods ultimately present the city's forest footprint in terms of hectares and CO2 emissions from the consumption of embodied deforestation. Now, there are four main components to the forest footprint for cities. The top two being the online dashboard and the action platform. These are both on the website, very much accessible now. And supporting that is a peer-reviewed methodology and a spreadsheet-based calculator. And for all of this can be accessed through the website here. And as you can see here, these are the main sections of the website. We'll go through those today and show you how you can use these sections to answer all your questions and really build your own forest footprint action plan. That's really the main goal here today. Scott covered quite a bit, actually, about really what the goals of the forest footprint will do for cities, but here I'll just summarize them again. The forest footprint has been built to help cities visualize and quantify their consumption of forest risk commodities and the resulting impacts. It's also built to suggest and support mitigation opportunities through policy and resident engagement. It's been built to link city carbon accounting and city climate action planning to forest, something that is critical to Cities for Forest mission, and also lead to the future investments in protecting tropical forests through initiatives such as the Partner Forest Program. So moving outside the website for the moment, how does it work? Well, actually, we'll come back right to the website. How does it work? The best place to start to answer this question on the website is the About page here. We have the two macro components of the dashboard here. You can read those in more detail, along with a very good diagram here that starts to explain just the process of the calculation of the forest footprint. It's essentially a very complex calculation that is made behind the scenes. And really this About page is the best place to start to answer the questions. If you have any, of course, we're here to help answer your questions. You can also find a link to the Forest Footprint for Cities methodology, which was published by the World Resources Institute as a tech note earlier this year in January by our team. This was really a labor of love. It's about 30 or 40 pages. And for those of you who really want to dive into the nitty-gritty, all the details, investigate the sources, where all this data is coming from, really welcome you to and encourage you to read this. will answer quite a lot of questions, and we can put the link to that in the chat at the end of the webinar. Again, this resource is also available on the website. But at the simplest level, this is essentially how the footprint is calculated. First, we take the level of consumption. So how much do city residents eat, use, and buy per year? And this is measured in tons of dry weight of commodities like beef, soy, palm oil, wood fiber, sugar, cocoa, etc. That's multiplied by the impact given in tons per hectare, tons of I should say, dry weight of a commodity per hectare of deforestation. This is backed by science-led studies led by Florence Pendrell and Martin Persons at Chalmers University, going back to 2019. We've been working with them on that. And these multiplied together give you footprint in terms of both hectares of consumption of embodied deforestation and tons of carbon dioxide. So that's the explanation of basically how it's calculated, how it works at a simple level. Of course, this gets much more complex the further you get down into it, and this complexity is really useful because you'll notice here that essentially after the footprint is broken down into 3 footprint variants, and these are averaged to give a single figure for ease of communication and comprehension. And these are separate because they actually represent different assumptions associated with both the consumption and the impact, consumption of these commodities and the impact on deforestation, the attribution of these commodities to deforestation, that are really important to understand the nuances of the city's impact on tropical forest. And normally in this quick webinar, I wouldn't get into too much detail on each of these footprints. The global average is fairly intuitive to understand, but these other 2 are a little bit more difficult to understand. And not that I want to skip over those. Please, if you want to have any questions about these, do let us know. But what I will mention about these is that these 2 last footprints are especially relevant in the terms of this recent EU and US deforestation-free trade legislation, namely the EU-DRU deforestation regulation that is coming into force very soon now. And this this is really a critical kind of component of the footprint that this actually addresses. So for those of you who aren't aware of what's going on with EUDR, essentially this is a ban on goods associated, the import of goods associated with tropical deforestation into the EU. That is set to take full effect in 2024. This is a great initiative. We certainly laud that, but it's really not enough. And that's where the tools like the forest footprint actually can be used by cities to really go the extra mile and influence positive change as well, especially forest positive change. So how do you do that? The reason being is that the critique with a lot of these bans is that they don't necessarily reduce deforestation at the source, but rather displace the consumption of this deforestation. And that is, it's a difficult process to really understand how that works if you're not well versed in it. But essentially, these two footprint variants, the trade flow and the distributed impact variant, have been built to balance those assumptions. And this diagram illustrates how a deforestation-free ban will displace the physical commodity an impact from one city to another under the trade flow footprint. So that's at the top on the top, the center and center right. You can see the soy with embodied deforestation in yellow, beigeish yellow, moving from city B to city C. And that's the assumption under the trade flow, is that city B would not be laden with that deforestation with their new deforestation-free ban. However, with the distributed impact footprint variant, city B, even though it still has this deforestation-free ban, because all of the soy in this under this footprint variant carries with it the same impact, that means that the soy that they're consuming still registers on their forest footprint, and therefore it captures more of the indirect impacts and indirect influence that the city can have to reduce deforestation really at the source. And that's really critical for all the actions that we work with cities to take on, because reducing deforestation is, a collective. It's a global need, not just the ones who are directly really consuming these commodities associated with the deforestation. It is everyone's responsibility, and that really rings through everything that we're doing. This is what the data looks like on the back end here. As you can see here, so all of this right now is calculated by Cities for Forests. We don't have the functionality within the website for cities to calculate this data on their own. That also means that Cities for Forests, our team here, is also best positioned to work with cities to help interpret this data, because climate data can always be quite difficult for people who don't work with it every day to really try and understand. So that's where, when we look at these graphs, we can work with cities to help really communicate the best messages and the best actions that can have the biggest, most significant impacts for a city such as Paris here.
Mac, if I could just intervene just for a second, just to highlight something on that previous slide. You're doing a great job. It just so people caught
Sure.
that those red numbers are that sort of average that Mac has been speaking of across those three footprinting methodologies. So in this case, you can see that the number that comes to Paris in terms of its forest footprint is 4,283 hectares per year. So it's just good to stop and just take a minute to reflect on. That's a large area, a very large area of primary tropical forest that has been essentially converted to non-forest area by the consumption of one city. It's a big city, but still, that's a large area. And then on the other side, you see that translated into tons of CO2 equivalency per year. And that's 1.3 million tons of CO2 per year, just based on the deforestation that is caused by the consumption of one city. So that's a big enough number that if you were doing Paris's climate action plan, you'd have to stand up and take notice. It's probably not on there now, and that's why this is so relevant. So back to you, Mac. You're doing a great job.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. No, that's a great point to make, and that's exactly lends to what I was saying. So back to my breakneck tour of this website. So all of this can be accessed through the city dashboards tab on the website here. This is showing all the cities that we have footprinted thus far. You can access all of these right now. This is just a screenshot of what that looks like, what the individual city dashboard page looks like. And this is an interactive tool. I just want to take you through this really quickly. Again, please go on the site and play around with it. So there's a few main components to this. There's first this resident profile, which shows, at a resident level, at a per capita level, really what the impact is by commodity, by footprint variant here that you can see. It's all very interactive. This is showing the footprint summaries on the right side there. Down below, we have the GHG emissions by footprint variant model, also compared against the carbon territorial emissions as well as our carbon opportunity cost, another really key metric here. On the right, we have the case studies. We'll get into a little bit more of that in a bit. But what's really critical and really intuitive, really great about this tool is actually the control panel. So anyone can go in and project, what changes in consumption would mean for a city like Salvador, Brazil. So what does it mean when we increase consumption? What does it mean when we reset consumption to the average? What does it mean when we change the impact, where we're sourcing these commodities from? And how does that affect our top line values? Also, with this tool, you can really just mix, like, what if we got rid of beef? What if we got rid of wood? What if we didn't consume any of the commodities? On the other side, you can also use this to isolate the impact of particular commodities. If you want to just compare soy versus palm oil in that case. Is there anything you want to add to that, Scott? I know this is your favorite part.
That's one of the exciting things about the tool is this user engagement. It's really designed to encourage city officials or folks working in companies or in other areas that want to just compare, contrast, explore. So we welcome you to do that. And that can be done whether you have your city already footprinted or not. You can go into really any of these cities and you can actually, start with theirs as a base. It won't hurt anything to move things around in one of the other cities. If you want to look at Paris or you want to look at say Montreal and say, well, what if Montreal, put a moratorium on beef, for example, like what would happen? And then, or what if the sourcing was changed to certified deforestation free beef for Salvador? Like what would happen there? And so there's a lot of functionality to play with. Thanks, Mac. Go ahead.
Great. Yeah. So move you to another tab here. So if you're curious about really these commodities and digging into the science behind the impact the production of these commodities is having on tropical deforestation, you can find all of that on the commodities tab. We have all of that laid out there for you. But I want to jump into this question, which is, okay, how does this apply to cities? Great, we have a footprint. What do we do next? Just going to skip over this slide for time. To help answer this question, we've put together an action platform to help guide cities to reduce and offset their forest footprint. I won't read all of these right now. The first action, of course, is to conduct a forest footprint assessment. There are other ones that cities think of first, such as upgrading procurement policies. But there's a lot more things that you or your city officials might not think about when that could be, have an impact to tropical forestry, such as reducing waste. Our goal, eventually, this is not a feature of the site at the moment, but of our work in general, is not only to qualify these, so what are the cities doing to reduce their forest footprint, but also to quantify these reductions as well. And the goal here is really to share experiences, and we'll get more into the case studies in a bit, so that we can have just a great repository for new cities to come in and learn from other cities and measure that. So This is all accessible through the Actions tab on the website. Here you can access each of these actions, and really you can use it honestly right now today to build your own action platform if you are working for a city. And each of these has their own page. Of course, you can read more into it. We have a great series of examples on how this can be used. We have links to cities taking this action, to the case studies, and also links to resources to help cities actually do this. Excuse me. So how have cities used it? As Scott said, this was an early project within a Cities to Forest initiative. First, back in 2020, when we first developed this methodology, we worked with 2 cities, Quito and Mexico City, to footprint them. Now we have footprinted more than 16 cities here that we have available on the website. Just run through a few highlights of city actions that we've helped lead and support over the years, such as working with Paris, the city of Paris, France, to build the forest footprint into their biodiversity action plan, working with the city of Georgetown to pilot forest positive manhole covers, working with the city of Salvador, Brazil, to develop a methodology for communicating the forest footprint related impacts of their carnival. And Scott, I did have this in my slideshow was frozen. I'm going to skip over these partner forest examples. These are great. We welcome you guys to go. If you're wondering more about this, this is an action under the action plan. It's everything all in our work is connected. More detail on this is at partnerforest.org. But all of these case studies that I was just talking about, they are available on the case studies page of the website. This is not even all of the case studies that we have. We'll be adding more over the next few months and weeks. Thanks, Michael, for adding that in the chat. So these are great examples that you can refer to as things that have been done, things that are in progress, and really get inspired. I will also note that the GHG protocol, the Global Protocol for Community Scale Greenhouse Gas Inventories, now supports, well, as of July 2022, last year, supports forest footprint in the GHG, city GHG accounting, basically. And that resource, to not only the forest footprint, but also that particular resource, is available on our site as well in the resources tab, along with a whole host of other, really critical resources for cities. And these are all sorted by actions really as well. We're getting close to the end of our webinar. We can stay on a little bit longer than 45 minutes past the hour. But how do you start, right? So this is the usual process that we work with cities to essentially create forest footprint action plans. Right now, we are soliciting applications to help cities with the following. This would be happening in 2024, next year, which are very quickly approaching. Virtual meeting, we work with cities to develop forest footprint action plans based on their needs, their opportunities that they see, and also the data that we help them develop. And this then, our intent is to lead this to develop pilot projects to really make this action real and make it scalable too. So if this is something that interests you, please let us know. The best place to do that is on the website. Right on the homepage, there's a contact form. We invite you to fill it out. Tell us what your personal organizational interest is with forest improvement cities, which action items you see your big ideas with the current and future city initiatives aligning to. Some timelines always help, but please do get in contact with us. That's really the best. This is really the best way to do this. And if you're not here today representing a city government, there's tons of other ways that you can contribute to the forest footprint of cities. And on each of these pages, there's ways for you to do that. If you have experience with leading far forest positive action in your city, we'd love to highlight this as a case study. And if you have if you're working on a resource or you have an initiative that you think could be relevant to the forest footprint, we can work with you to add this to our resource library. If you've got something that doesn't necessarily fit in with the website, but fits in with what you've heard here today, and you've got a great idea for a forest footprint related collaboration, please just let us know. We'd love to talk with you about this. And yeah, there's contact forms on the forestfootprint.org. If you've never seen a contact form before, this is what it looks like. And if you can't find it, you can contact us here at forest-footprint pilotprojects.org. Before I open it up for questions,
in the chat. That way,
yeah,
great.
Before I open it up for questions, Scott, is there any kind of closing remarks that you want to do?
I want to thank you, Mac, for a great presentation, and Michael as part of our core team as well. And there's many others who have worked on this over the years, especially our colleagues at the World Resources Institute, a few of whom are on the call here. So thanks to the whole team. And let's take a few minutes to respond to some of the questions that have come in. I see at least one or two there. Do you want to well, I can see one here from Amy Hand. Does the consumption data come from cities directly? And if so, do you find that they commonly have this sort of commodity-based breakdown? What barriers are there in getting this data? So it's a great question, and we probably didn't cover that explicitly enough. And the answer is a simple no, it doesn't at this point in time come directly from cities' consumption data. Matt could give you a lot more detail, but I'll give you the highlight, which is given the complexity of getting that data, we are using nationally derived data from a variety of sources to create the best possible proxy for a given city, essentially creating an individual consumption-based profile and then multiplying it by the population of the city. We have made some factoring in on urban consumption relative to national data, and there's been a lot of work and consternation on that. And I will say one other thing, and that is that we hope at some point to be able to put city-derived data in, which would be quite compatible with the framework, but getting that data is actually very difficult at this point in time.
Yeah, I can add. Yeah, please do get in touch, Aisha and Amy, if you have any further questions. I will add a few small bits of detail to Scott's answer, which is really great. Just to say that in some cases, national statistics boards will, in certain countries, will have, for instance, food basket surveys for specific city regions, and so that is able to fulfill some of the data requirements for kind of city level data. In most cases, municipal governments aren't measuring consumption of the city as a whole. However, more and more cities we work with are measuring consumption of they're measuring their internal procurement, and they're really taking that as the step that they want to do to incorporate that into the forest footprint. So that is something that is maybe a little bit easier for cities, is measuring their own consumption versus measuring the consumption of the city as a whole, that we, again, are and have been working with cities to help measure and address.
Great. I see a few other questions coming in, so I don't know if we can.
A question for Megan, is this tool specifically for tropical deforestation? Yes, yes, it is. How can this be adapted to other types of forests? Scott, do you want to address that, or shall I?
I'll take a quick stab at it and you can fill in the blanks. But the reason for this is the level of emergency and urgency of tropical deforestation. When it comes to forests that are not tropical forests, the actual land use conversion is relatively low. Again, we have other issues with degradation that comes from, say, tree harvests that may or may not be well managed. It creates other environmental issues, but the actual conversion from forest to other land use is mostly a tropical forest problem. But the tool certainly could be modified with some subtleties to look at other consumption and impacts.
And we do have other tools to help cities address their impact on forests as a whole. For instance, the Sustainable Wood for Cities tool. Most boreal forest loss is either from natural disturbances, i.e. wildfires, or forestry. And so on the forestry side, we have tools to help cities understand those impacts as well. So yes, if that is something that is of interest to you, we have those as well.
Yeah, just to underscore that, the Sustainable Wood for Cities tool is of a similar kind of ilk to this one, but it's directed towards the consumption of timber and wood products and the impacts there and how that can be done more sustainably. So that can be accessed at citywoodguide.com. So are there any more questions, open questions? I see 11 answered and no more open questions. Does anyone want to throw in a last one before we wrap it up? Again, we're extending a very warm welcome to anyone who wants to reach out to us, either through the portal or through our contact email here. Would love to hear from you.
I think that's it. I think people want to keep it to 45 minutes. I think that's
great job, everyone.
Fine with us too. We're going to post this recording of the webinar on the website. We'll follow up with everyone who's registered with just thanks for attending, and also a lot of the core information from this webinar, links to the website, how to get in contact with us, etc. So yeah, thanks, and I'll leave the last word with Scott.
Oh, just thank you everyone for attending. We look forward to hearing from you. We look forward to you engaging with this tool and reaching out to us with any questions you have. Thanks again to our team. Mac has especially spent years of work developing this, and it's a labor of love and an ongoing development that will continue to be refined and developed over the years as people use and test the tool and as new types of data become available. So you can look forward to it being dynamic and responsive, and we hope over the years it will really help cities address their footprint on tropical forests, reducing their carbon and biodiversity impacts. So thanks again for joining us, everybody. Goodbye on behalf of Cities for Forests.